When Sophia regained consciousness in the medbay of the human vessel, the UTS Athena, her senses were overwhelmed by unfamiliar sights and sounds. The first face she saw was rugged yet kind, with piercing blue eyes that radiate warmth, a stark contrast to any species she had encountered before, let alone these strange bipeds called humans. Little did she know then how profoundly this human soldier, Lieutenant Robert Jensen, would alter the trajectory of her life. As she lay there, trying to piece together the fragments of her memory, Sophia realized she was getting ahead of herself. She needed to start at the beginning. Sophia was once a scout for the Delone Defense Forces stationed on the dusty mining outpost of Pyros 5. Her mission was straightforward: protect the valuable mineral deposits from raiders and rival factions. For a young soldier like her, it seemed like just another mundane posting in the middle of nowhere. That is, until the krill invaded. The krill were a vicious insectoid species, all sharp angles and cold, unflinching malevolence. They attacked without warning, swarming over the outpost's defenses and slaughtering anyone in their path. Sophia watched in horror as they tore apart her squadmates, ripping through armor and flesh with their razor-sharp talons. Frozen with fear, she barely managed to grab her rifle and take cover behind some mining equipment. Her hands shook as she fired wildly into the mass of swarming bodies, each shot seeming only to enrage them further. She knew it was hopeless, there were too many, and she was just one scared soldier about to meet a gruesome end. A talon slashed across her abdomen, and she collapsed, bright green blood pouring from the wound. As her vision began to fade, she thought she glimpsed a strange craft descending from the sky, spewing fire at the krill. Then everything went black. Sophia thought that was the end, just another forgotten casualty in an uncaring galaxy. But fate, it seems, had other plans. When she awoke with a gasp, instinctively reaching for her wand, she found it covered in strange white dressings. Blinking against the harsh light, her eyes struggled to focus on her new surroundings: gray metal walls, beeping machines with flashing lights, and a creature she had never seen before leaning over her. "Easy there," said a deep yet gentle voice. "You're safe now. I'm Lieutenant Jensen, but you can call me Robert. You're on the UTS Athena." Sophia tried to speak, but her mouth was dry as sand. Robert offered her a small cylindrical container. "Here, drink this slowly." The cool liquid soothed her parched throat as she took small sips. Finally, she croaked out, "Where am I? What happened?" Robert explained patiently, "We received your distress call and arrived to find the krill swarming your outpost. I'm afraid there were few survivors, but we did manage to rescue you and a handful of others before finishing off those bugs." The mention of survivors brought a pang of grief as Sophia remembered her squadmates' terrible fates. Yet, here she was, spared by these strange beings. Robert placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, the simple gesture easing her distress. "Rest," he said softly. "You're still healing from your injuries. The Athena has some of the best medical facilities in the galaxy. We'll get you back on your feet." Sophia had so many more questions, but exhaustion suddenly washed over her. She managed a small nod before slipping back into a dreamless sleep, feeling strangely safe in the presence of this alien soldier who radiated calm and compassion. Over the next several days, Sophia remained in the medical bay, slowly regaining her strength. The human doctors tended to her wound with technology far beyond anything she had ever seen: dermal regenerators, cellular enhancers, nanosutures. To her people, an injury like hers would have been a death sentence or, at best, a permanent maiming. But these humans spoke of having her combat-ready again in mere weeks. She also learned more about her rescuers and the ship on which she now resided. The Athena was a United Terran ship, part of the peacekeeping and humanitarian armada of the Galactic Concordance. Its crew was primarily human, a relatively new species on the galactic stage, but one quickly gaining a reputation for their advanced technology, unyielding bravery, and puzzling tendency to help those in need, even at great cost to themselves. It was Lieutenant Robert Jensen with whom Sophia interacted most during her recovery. He visited her daily, sometimes bringing food, always first making sure it was safe for Delone physiology, and teaching her about human culture. Other times, he would simply sit with her, listening patiently as she haltingly attempted to describe her homeworld, her family, her hopes and fears. Sophia learned that, like her, Robert was a soldier, a member of the Concordance Marines. But he spoke of his missions with a mix of pride and sorrow, describing the lives he and his fellow Marines had saved while mourning those they hadn't reached in time. He carried those losses with him, a burden he couldn't seem to put down. One day, Sophia asked him, "Why do you do it? Why throw yourselves into the line of fire for others, for aliens you've never even met? Certainly not for glory or riches." Robert pondered the question for a long moment before responding, "I suppose it's just who we are, humans, I mean. We learned long ago on Earth, after much pain and loss, that we're all in this together, that we're stronger when we stand united. Out here in the black, we're all each other's got. There's too much darkness, too much cruelty. We have to be the light, even if it sometimes burns us. We have to try." As the days turned to weeks, Sophia grew stronger, and her bond with Robert deepened. He shared stories of Earth, towering mountains, vast oceans, velvety night skies. In turn, she told him of Kez, her home moon, with its steaming jungles and violet sunsets. They spoke of family, duty, and purpose. Robert's eyes would light up when talking about his daughter, Emma, awaiting his return on Mars colony. "It's for her and kids like her that we do what we do out here," he told Sophia once. "To make the galaxy just a little safer, a little brighter, so that someday, perhaps, they can know real peace." For Sophia, peace was not a concept she was overly familiar with. Existence was struggle, conflict, and competition. The strong thrived while the weak perished. This was the way of things. But the more time she spent with Robert, the more she began to wonder if perhaps there was another way. As Sophia's wounds continued to heal under the meticulous care of Athena's medical team, she found herself increasingly intrigued by the humans' advanced medical technology. Devices such as dermal regenerators, which accelerated tissue repair at a cellular level, and nanosutures, capable of weaving microscopic fibers into damaged tissue, were unlike anything her people had ever conceived. Back on Kez, injuries like hers would have either claimed her life outright or left her permanently incapacitated. Here, however, the doctors spoke confidently of restoring her to full functionality within weeks. Their assurances felt almost surreal, as though she had stumbled into a realm where the impossible became routine. Each day, she marveled at the steady progress her body made under their care, her once severe wound now reduced to faint scars that served as a testament to the resilience of both her biology and the human's ingenuity. Beyond the technology, it was the compassionate demeanor of the medical staff that truly set the experience apart. Sophia observed how they approached every patient with a blend of professionalism and genuine concern, treating her not as a stranger or an alien but as someone deserving of dignity and care. One particular instance stood out. When she expressed discomfort during a treatment session, a nurse named Charlotte immediately adjusted her approach, offering words of reassurance and explaining the procedure step by step. It was a small gesture, yet it underscored the profound humanity embedded in their practices. Such moments made Sophia reflect on the rigid formality of the Delone military units she had known, where emotions were often suppressed in favor of efficiency. Here, compassion was not a weakness but a cornerstone of their effectiveness, a revelation that both humbled and inspired her. During her convalescence, Sophia also began to explore the ship itself, venturing beyond the confines of the medical bay under Robert's watchful guidance. The Athena was a marvel of engineering, a floating city brimming with life and purpose. Robert introduced her to the hydroponic gardens, where lush greenery thrived under artificial sunlight, providing fresh produce for the crew. The observation deck, with its panoramic view of the stars, became a place of quiet reflection for Sophia. She found herself drawn to the training rooms, where crew members sparred and drilled with disciplined precision. What struck her most, however, was the camaraderie among the humans. Their laughter, casual touches, and open interactions stood in stark contrast to the hierarchical rigidity she had grown accustomed to. Watching them work together seamlessly, regardless of rank or background, Sophia began to appreciate the unique strength of their unity. Her interactions with the diverse crew further enriched her understanding of humanity's role in the galaxy. She met Michael, a towering Velian engineer whose expertise in energy systems complemented Athena's advanced technology. His enthusiasm for collaboration was infectious, and he eagerly sought Sophia's input on modifying the ship's shielding to withstand krill plasma blasts. Nara, an Arasan navigator with glittering silver eyes, patiently explained the intricacies of void-fold calculations used for warp jumps, fascinated by the Delone method Sophia had learned. Even the Oris Sapon medics welcomed her insights into Delone physiology, creating a symbiotic exchange of knowledge that benefited everyone involved. These encounters reinforced the idea that diversity, rather than being a barrier, could be a source of immense strength when embraced with openness and respect. Yet, despite the warmth and acceptance she experienced aboard the Athena, doubt lingered in Sophia's mind. Her squad was gone, her posting destroyed. Once fully recovered, where would she go? What would she do? Could she really return to Kez, to a government mired in endless conflict, to a society that cared nothing for the weak and broken? One evening, as she sat with Robert in the gardens, the scent of alien flowers perfuming the recycled air, she voiced these uncertainties. "I feel lost," she confessed, staring down at her hands, still bearing faint scars from the attack. "Directionless. You've all saved me, healed me, shown me kindness. I still don't fully understand. How can I repay that? How do I move forward?" Robert listened intently, his expression thoughtful as always. After a long pause, he took her hand in his, the warmth of his skin instantly soothing. "You know," he began, "there are still hundreds down on Pyros 5 suffering from the aftermath of the krill attack, many wounded, many more displaced, resources destroyed. They could use our help." Sophia looked up at him, surprised. "You're going down there? Even after the attack?" Robert nodded resolutely. "The Athena may be a warship, but her primary mission has always been a humanitarian one. We go where we're needed." He squeezed her hand gently. "And in this case, I think you're needed too." Sophia blinked at him, unsure. "Me? What could I possibly offer? I'm just one broken soldier." Robert smiled, that gentle smile of his that always seemed to carry an unwavering belief in her potential. "You're also a survivor," he said firmly. "Someone who understands their pain and loss, someone with an instinctive knowledge of their world and ways. You have talents and strength beyond what you know. Come down with me. Let's help put things back together." She stared into his earnest eyes, seeing the pure belief shining there, belief in her, a relative stranger, an alien he had already given back life and a chance. Now, he was offering her purpose. A swell of unfamiliar emotion burst through her chest. She still didn't fully understand these humans, not entirely, but she understood this human, this frustratingly kind male who had saved her, cared for her, and now wanted her by his side as he recklessly threw himself into danger once more. How could she possibly refuse? Taking a deep breath, Sophia nodded and squeezed his hand in return. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's go. Be the light." And so it was decided, a new path begun, one she never could have foreseen. The scene that greeted Sophia and Robert upon their descent to Pyros 5 was one of utter devastation, far worse than Sophia had imagined. Mangled mining equipment lay scattered across the landscape, scorched earth marking where the Athena's cannons had obliterated krill swarms. Makeshift tents crammed with the injured and displaced dotted the barren terrain, their tattered fabric flapping listlessly in the wind. Not a single structure remained standing. Sophia stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the acrid stench of smoke and decay that clung to the air like a suffocating shroud. The weight of the destruction pressed heavily on her chest, but then Robert was by her side, solid, resolute, and grounding her with his steady presence. "Come on," he said calmly, slinging his med pack over his shoulder and grabbing a crate of supplies. "There's work to be done." They headed toward the field hospital first, erected by the Concordance med teams that had deployed ahead of them. Rows of cots held the wounded, human tech bustling between them with dermal regenerators and hyposprays. Amid the chaos, Sophia noticed a group of unattended Delone survivors huddled in a corner, their wary eyes widening as she approached. Her Delone features, overlaid with the unfamiliar Concordance issue fatigues she now wore, seemed to unsettle them further. "Peace," she said in Delone Standard, her voice firm yet soothing. "I am Sophia Zen, formerly of the 18th Scout Battalion. This human is a medic. We're here to help." A young male miner, his face streaked with grime and despair, spat bitterly. "Why would the Terrans help us? We're not their responsibility. We were barely a speck on their star charts before this." Others muttered agreement, their faces etched with pain and suspicion. Before Sophia could respond, Robert crouched down to their level, opening his pack and holding out an iridescent vial. "A potent Delone painkiller." "You're right," he said evenly, the translation device on his collar rendering his words in perfect Delone Standard. "We're not here out of obligation or politics. We're here because you're hurting, and we have the means to ease that hurt. That's all the reason we need." The miner stared at him for a long moment, evaluating. Finally, he reached out to accept the vial, and Robert began gently rolling up the man's shredded sleeve to treat his lacerations. The others watched tensely, some wincing in shared pain, but none pulled away when their turns came. And so it went, they moved amongst the survivors, Robert providing swift and expert care while Sophia translated and soothed with familiar phrases. Some they visited in their crowded tents, treating illness and dehydration caused by poor sanitation. Others assisted in the grim work of burying their dead, offering small words of comfort as the mourners keened their grief to the violet skies. Together, they coordinated food and supply distribution from the Athena's cargo hold, ensuring the rations were familiar and palatable to Delone tastes. Everywhere they went, Sophia saw the initial distrust and resentment in her people's eyes gradually fade away, replaced by tentative gratitude, even wonder, as they witnessed the tireless dedication of Robert and his fellow humans, expecting no payment or praise in return. The transformation was subtle but profound. Sophia recognized it as a perspective shift, a realization that compassion and unity could be strengths in their own right. Yet, it wasn't always easy. There were moments of frustration and helplessness in the face of so much loss. One dawn, after a sleepless night tending to a child's horrific burns, Sophia found Robert on the outskirts of the encampment, head bowed and shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "Hey," she said softly, coming to stand beside him. "You okay?" He glanced over at her, managing a rueful smile. "Just thinking. Wishing we could have gotten here sooner. That we could do more." Sophia nodded slowly. Those same thoughts had plagued her as well. The Delone prided themselves on their strong defenses, and yet their outpost had fallen so swiftly. How many more might they have saved with the Terrans' advanced weaponry and indomitable spirit? But wishes changed nothing. "We're doing everything we can," she reminded him. "You taught me that. And look at what we've already accomplished here. In mere days, my people are not quick to trust, but you've shown them a new way. Hope where there was none before." Some of the tension eased from Robert's posture as he digested her words. "I suppose you're right," he admitted. "I guess I just can't help but feel the weight of it all sometimes. Emma would probably tell me I'm being too hard on myself again." "She sounds wise," Sophia teased lightly. "You should listen to her more." "Brat," Robert retorted with a chuckle, bumping his shoulder against hers. The casual contact sent a pleasant shiver up her spine. These moments with Robert, the easy banter, the physical closeness, felt more right than anything she had known. Natural breathing. They lapsed into comfortable silence for a while, watching Pyro's 5's twin moons creep toward the horizon, the hushed murmur of the waking camp behind them. Finally, Robert turned to face her fully, his expression unreadable. "What will you do when our work here is done?" he asked quietly. "Have you given any thought to that?" Sophia hesitated, an icy tendril of uncertainty curling in her gut. In truth, she had been avoiding that very question. Athena and her crew had begun to feel like home. Robert had begun to feel like something else entirely. "I'm not sure," she admitted, hating the small tremble in her voice. "Return to Kez, I suppose. Make my report to command." But the words felt hollow, the thought of leaving now almost physically painful. Robert held her gaze, searching for a breathless moment. She thought he might reach for her, but he simply nodded, looking back to the horizon where the first sliver of sun was peeking through. "Well," he said at last, "you've more than proven yourself here. Prove your resilience, your adaptability, your compassion." He glanced at her sidelong. "Athena could use someone like you. The Concordance could, if that's something you might want." Sophia stared at him, her heart suddenly hammering against her ribs. Was he saying what she thought he was? Offering her a place among his crew, a chance to continue what they'd started, not just here, but out there, in the swirling vastness of space. She thought of her squad, her old life, what it had been, what it could never be again. Then she thought of Athena, the sense of purpose and camaraderie she'd found there, of the way Robert made her feel challenged and valued, seen in a way she never had been before. Maybe this was more than just a posting. More than duty or obligation. Maybe this was the beginning of everything. She took a shaky breath and squared her shoulders, meeting Robert's gaze with a determined one of her own. "Yes," she said firmly. "I want that. I want to stay on the Athena, with you, with the crew." The grin that broke across Robert's face was blinding, transformative. Sophia felt an answering smile tug at her own lips, giddy elation bubbling up from some secret well within her. This was right. This was where she belonged. "Well, all right then," Robert said, his voice warm with barely contained delight. "Let's make it official." He reached out to clasp her shoulder, the touch searing even through the layers of her uniform. "Welcome aboard, Sophia Zen, of the Galactic Concordance." The days following Sophia's decision to join the Athena passed in a whirlwind of activity, each moment pulsing with newfound purpose. The grueling work that had once weighed heavily on her hardly seemed to matter anymore. She now had a future, one she had chosen for herself, one filled with promise and belonging. As they wrapped up their relief efforts on Pyro's 5, ensuring the survivors were safe and provisioned for the long process of rebuilding, Sophia bid farewell to those she had come to know. Her parting words carried a solemn vow: "The Athena will check in. You will not be forgotten." It was a promise born of the lessons she had learned aboard the ship, where compassion and commitment transcended borders and species. Upon returning to the Athena, Sophia was granted official quarters, a modest but welcoming space that marked her transition from guest to crew member. Her integration into the ship's operations began immediately, guided by an intensive training regimen designed to acquaint her with human customs, protocols, and the intricacies of working alongside a diverse crew. Unsurprisingly, Robert took a lead role in her education, his patience and dedication unwavering. He walked her through the nuances of Terran etiquette, helped refine her translation implant, and introduced her to the ship's state-of-the-art systems. During combat exercises, he pushed her to adapt her scouting specialties to their tactical framework, always challenging her to excel. "I may be new to your ways," Sophia told him once, panting and sweat-streaked after a particularly brutal sparring session, "but I'm no fragile flower." Robert laughed, reaching down to haul her to her feet. "Noted," he replied, his tone teasing but sincere. "I'll remember that next time you're cursing my name from the mats." Their dynamic was a blend of mentorship and camaraderie, each interaction reinforcing her confidence and deepening their bond. Yet, as Sophia found her footing among the Athena's diverse crew, she couldn't help but marvel at the seamless acceptance and respect she was afforded. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of Delone units, where individuality was often stifled in favor of conformity, here she was valued not just for her skills but for her unique perspective. The Velian engineer, Michael, eagerly sought her input on modifying the ship's shielding to better withstand krill plasma blasts, recognizing the value of her first-hand experience. Nara, the Erisan navigator, patiently explained the complexities of void-fold calculations, fascinated by the Delone method Sophia had mastered. Even the Oris Sapon medics welcomed her contributions, creating a symbiotic exchange of knowledge that enriched everyone involved. This cultural synergy extended beyond professional collaboration. Meals in the galley became opportunities for connection, laughter, and storytelling. Crew members shared tales of their homeworlds, their families, and their aspirations, painting a mosaic of experiences that highlighted their shared humanity despite their differences. Sophia found herself opening up in ways she never had before, recounting memories of Kez and her former life with a vulnerability that surprised even her. Robert, ever the attentive listener, encouraged her to share more, his curiosity about her world genuine and heartfelt. One evening, as they stargazed on the observation deck, Robert spoke of his daughter, Emma, his voice tinged with wistful longing. "She's fascinated by other species," he said, his eyes tracing the vibrant hues of a drifting nebula. "Always begging me for stories of our missions." He slanted Sophia a smile. Meeting her very own Delone warrior would probably make her whole year. Sophia ducked her head, warmth flooding her cheeks at the thought. "I would be honored to meet her someday," she murmured. "If you think she wouldn't mind a visit from her father's alien partner." The words crackled on her tongue, daring and new. Robert stilled, his eyes widening slightly. "Partner," he echoed softly. "Is that what we are?" Sophia swallowed hard, holding his gaze. "Isn't it? Unless my feelings are one-sided." The mere thought made her want to curl in on herself like a withered leaf. "No," Robert breathed, catching her hand and pulling her closer. "Not one-sided. Never that." His other hand came up to cup her cheek, rough palm infinitely gentle. He rested his forehead against hers, the gesture achingly intimate. "Sophia," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "you have become essential to me. I didn't expect this. Never thought I could feel this way again. But you make me want to try." Her breath hitched, her pulse thundering in her ears. She reached up to brush her fingers wonderingly over the pale stubble along his jaw. "Robert," she whispered, "I want this too." "Want you? Whatever comes." He made a rough sound, almost a growl, and then his lips were on hers, hot and insistent. She gasped into the kiss, her hands fisting in the front of his uniform as he hauled her flush against him. The taste of him was intoxicating, addictive. She lost herself to the heat of his mouth, the slide of his tongue against her own. Nothing had ever felt more right. They lost track of time, wrapped up in each other, trading lazy kisses and murmured words of affection. It was only the chirp of Robert's communicator that finally broke them apart, flushed and breathless. "Connor here," he answered, his voice still gravelly. His arms stayed firmly around her waist. "Lieutenant," came Captain Howell's clipped tones, "we've just received a distress call from a civilian transport near the Tsin asteroid belt. Possible krill raider activity. I need you to assemble a tactical team for intercept and potential rescue ops." Robert and Sophia locked eyes, adrenaline already humming through their veins. "Understood, Captain," Robert replied. "Sophia Zen and I will be in the hangar in 10. Connor out." As they hurried to gather their gear, Sophia couldn't help the fierce grin stretching her face. This was who they were, Robert and she, guardians and protectors, no matter the danger, no matter the odds. They would be the light in the darkness, the hope for the hopeless, together always, for as long as the stars burned bright. And Sophia knew, with bone-deep certainty, that she had finally found her true path, her purpose. With this crew, with this remarkable human by her side, she was home. The distress call from the civilian transport near the Tsin asteroid belt arrived like a clarion call, jolting Sophia and Robert into action. As they raced to the hangar, their movements were synchronized, their resolve unshakable. This was the essence of their partnership, two souls bound not just by shared experiences but by a deeper, unspoken commitment to safeguarding others. For Sophia, it was a culmination of everything she had learned since awakening in Athena's medbay. She had once been a soldier defined by duty, her identity tied to the rigid structures of the Delone military. But now, she was something more, a protector driven not by obligation but by choice, by love for the people and ideals she had come to cherish. Robert's influence had been transformative. His unwavering belief in her potential had ignited a spark within her, pushing her to see herself not as a broken survivor but as a beacon of hope. His humanity, his capacity for empathy, his willingness to embrace vulnerability, had reshaped her understanding of strength. Where she had once seen compassion as a liability, she now recognized it as the foundation of resilience. Together, they embodied the values of the Concordance: unity, courage, and an unyielding determination to shine light into the darkest corners of the galaxy. As they prepared to board their shuttle, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the devastation of Pyros 5 to the camaraderie of the Athena's crew, every step had led her to this moment. She thought of the survivors they had helped rebuild, the bonds they had forged with strangers who had become family. She thought of Robert, whose steadfast presence had anchored her through uncertainty and fear. And she thought of herself, not the person she had been, but the person she had become, a warrior of the stars, a guardian of the vulnerable, a symbol of possibility. Standing side by side, Sophia and Robert exchanged a glance, wordless yet profound. This was their calling, to stand as the light in the darkness, to be the hope for the hopeless. Together, they would face whatever challenges awaited, their bond a testament to the power of compassion and unity. For as long as the stars burned bright, they would remain steadfast, protectors of a galaxy that had taught them the true meaning of home.